Hello everyone and welcome back to another stream from Oman Talks NRL SuperCoach, here to preview round 16. We are recording on Tuesday evening ahead of State of Origin Game 2, where of course there probably will be some kind of updates, carnage. We didn't really get it from Game 1, but there will be, I suspect, something from Game 2, just because the SuperCoach gods do want to make everything much more difficult for us, and more likely than not, there will be some big talking points, I guess, out of Game 2. So let's see where that takes us. But until then, we still have plenty to get our heads stuck into for round 16. Excuse me. My bad. Get your questions in for the stream, guys. We'll try to keep this a little bit shorter, 45 minutes to an hour, just given that there's a lot of caveats of, what happens post-Origin, but we can still talk about a lot of other relevant players. I've got a poll going on in the stream at the moment as well, so get your votes in terms of what topics you want to hear discussed in what order. So what I've got is second row forwards, who to get, obviously with Keon going down, who we'll talk about though, Olukwatu, Tino named on the bench. People are shopping in the forwards. And of course your centers, fullbacks and your halves, people still may be selling a Cleary, people still might be selling a Cam Munster. So yeah, get all those votes in. Give the stream a like as well, guys, if you are enjoying it as well. And let's say hello to a few people in the chat. Lachlan Camilleri says, it's Colo is a day-to-day proposition and avoided surgery. Yeah, there's some whispers actually that Koloamatangi might be back sooner than we hope, or sooner than we think. So that is giving me, I was holding him anyway, but I'll cut to the chase. I'm going to keep holding Koloamatangi. We don't have any news, but look at your round 18 numbers. If he somehow is back for that, he'll be a key number. But yeah, he could be back sooner. And I guess the good thing with the Rabbitohs is that they probably can't really delay him. I guess if anytime he seems to be fit, he needs to play, because they need to have all troops on deck. Jason Yang, Aman, how's life? Life is going good. Thank you very much for asking. That's very nice. How's life for you, Jason? On Koloamatangi, Radio Buckley says Koloamatangi extended a bench. Yeah, I did see him in the 19th jersey, and I thought, interesting. Maybe I was wondering if it was the fact that maybe the Rabbitohs didn't have anyone else to name, and so they've just put Koloamatangi in there. But definitely someone I think we can just keep a very firm eye on. Is Talakai a buy? We'll definitely talk about Talakai. Roger Tuivasa-Sheck as a potential buy option now that they're coming off of their round 15 buy, and they've got a pretty good run home as well. What an absolute round of carnage last week, says Jimmy B. Yeah, the last 2 weeks have had quite a bit of carnage. Olukwatu, actually, I didn't even realize it. I didn't even check it in the team list, but Greg Marzu, I think he's been named for the Knights. Marzu's been named. So I think people who went on Marzu last week, thankfully he's been named. Fletcher Sharps also was out last week, but he's back. But you had the week before that, you had Hopewadi getting injured, Iro getting injured. There was a few others I definitely know I'm missing. There was a lot of carnage the last couple of rounds. So SuperCoach just keeping things spicy for us. So keep getting your votes in. I'll quickly do a rank update. It's not going good, guys. Just further and further down am I falling. Season ranker now is smack bang on 5,000. I'm just literally getting low. I don't think I've had a big green arrow since round 5. It's just been constant pain, I guess, over the last few weeks. And I think I had okay numbers for round 15, but just no one, I guess, who really stood out. And of course, Tedesco was the big omission in my team, but that wrong has been corrected. He is now in the team. I can already tell you now, an early trade of mine, Turbo to Teddy, is locked in. I had the money. I'm doing it. Not even looking back. But hopefully that is a worthwhile move for my team. And second trade, not yet sure about. But hopefully can just start putting together some green arrows. But losing a little bit of faith, because I've been saying that for the last kind of 10 rounds and it's not quite worked out. Having an exact round number rank is great. Yeah, that'd be nice, Luke. I wish it was like maybe 1,000 or 500 or 200 or 10. I'll take all those numbers. 5,000, that's okay. Look, it's still, it's still top 3%. I think the goal is to get a top 1% finish, and we'll see where that lands us. That would probably mean having to be around the top, 1,700. Ideally, though, I would still like to be top 1,000, but we'll just need to keep making good trade decisions, and see where good trade decisions and also good captaincy and sit-start decisions. I think my trade-ins have actually been fine. Like, I traded in Herbie last week. Thank God I traded in Herbie last week. Otherwise, I would have been in a world of pain. But we at least got Herbie in. So just missing a few key players and having a lot of plotters, I think, through my team. But let's get into TLT quick wrap-up, and then we'll get into Your questions to Arif is definitely dominating the votes at the moment, 60% of votes. So yeah, we'll speak about the second row forwards. But on team list, so Jerome Luai was named for the Tigers. They do play the Friday game at Campbelltown, so I'd imagine that'd be a pretty tough backup. They've got Latu Final on the bench, who may potentially come into the starting team. And you've also got Fanul Pole and Twal back for the Tigers. Hudson Young was also named for the Raiders. This one, again, similar to Luai, like in terms of minutes, he should be fine because he shouldn't be playing too many minutes off the bench. Or even if he does play decent minutes, it's not going to be like 80 minutes or anything like that coming off the bench for the Blues. It's just a big turnaround from Perth all the way back to Campbelltown on Friday. So he's one to watch because I know he's someone who people are looking at as a trade-in target for their second rowers. And a potential downgrade option in a couple of weeks is Jed Stewart, 198k. Obviously, with Tamale being out for a long time, 10 to 12 weeks, Jed Stewart, if he keeps that position, will be playing for a good Raiders team. They cover around 18, so might be an actual good downgrade as well to facilitate funds in the future. For the Warriors, Wade Egan is back, so Sam Healy, who was a nice little enough play for people, I think earlier in round 13 or round 14, he's an 18th man. And as we suspected, no Panthers players who play Origin have been named to back up for them. So again, that feeds into why a lot of people sold Cleary. His ownership in the top ranked coaches has gone down to 46%. So a lot of people sold, and a lot of people will probably keep selling this week as well. But so yeah, that's obviously big, and that also helps the case for your Warriors players because they're obviously playing a very understrength Penrith team in round 16. For the Dolphins, Hamiso has been named at fullback. He makes sense because their game is actually in Perth, so that he doesn't even need to travel back to the East Coast for his NRL club match. He can stay in Perth. For the Knights, Ponga has also been named, provided he comes through Origin okay. Fletcher Sharp's been named, and I should have mentioned that also Marzu. Dom Young is also on the wing now for them, and Brabham Best. So their backline looks pretty much full strength now, having Marzu, Fletcher Sharp, Dane Gagai, Dom Young as well. So that means Schiller, Fletcher Hunt, McCarthy, a couple of cheapies there, all out. The Troll's been named for the Rabbitohs, and all of the Storm Origin players have been named. So this is, again, a big caveat because, I'm going to be talking about Munster later in my potential trade plans. I can't really make a firm decision until I see what happens tomorrow. And it's one of those weeks where being flexible with your team and trades is going to be really important. You just need to be aware of, the late changes to teams, the 24-hour cuts, all that kind of stuff. The Storm, I think, play on the Saturday in the evening slot, like 7:30. So bit of a turnaround time, that's okay for them, but let's see how that goes. Broncos have named their Origin players in Haas and Carrigan. Josiah Karapani has also been named again on the wing, so maybe a potential downgrade. And for the Sharks, Hirotti's out 4 to 6 weeks with that calf, so that means that Siva Talakai starts. A lot of people will be thinking about Talakai. There was already a question I saw earlier about Talakai, so we'll get on to him. 303k, I believe. Roosters Origin players have also been named, so that's good for like my own team where I have Connor Watson still, Angus Crichton, etc., all of those guys. That also means that Mark Nwangani Tawasi is named on the wing, Rob Toy at centre, so I think that's probably better for him Supercoach-wise. Cowboys Origin players have been named as well, and I think not necessarily for the Origin players, maybe Nanai is relevant, but probably more for someone like a Drinkwater, who I know people are maybe looking at moving on. The fact that he might potentially be able to play this week and have his Origin players means a lot because it obviously means he's not going to be playing an understrength. He's not going to be playing with an understrength Cowboys team. And then finally for the Eels versus the Titans, that's the very last game, 6 p.m. I think on Sunday. Lomax has been named for the Eels, which I suspected, and I suspect he will play, obviously, provided he gets through tomorrow night, okay? But obviously no Mitch Moses now, out for like 5 to 6 weeks. No Dylan Brown this week as well with the suspension, so we'll talk about Lomax when we come to centres. Big new Supercoach ramifications here for Tino, named on the bench. So that can still change on the game day. They might just do it to be safe. And then on game day, they might put him into the starting lineup. So again, it's very, very awkward though because he is the very, very last game of the round. So you can't really know until game day. So we'll talk about Tino as well because I know some people are also looking at potentially selling this week. He's got a decent break even as well. So that's kind of a wrap up of TLT. And yeah, in terms of the backups and everything like that, I just will quickly show this. So really it's the first game of the Canberra Raiders versus the Tigers. That's a little bit difficult to see players backing up, just given the short turnaround time, just purely to fly back from Perth to Sydney. They're playing in Campbelltown. But Luai and Hudson Young are very important for their team. They could still feasibly play, but yeah, just a keen eye on them. Storm players is a little bit iffy. It's a 2-day turnaround. They play on Saturday, so they've got Thursday, Friday off, and then they'll play on the Saturday. So, to be honest, I actually would hazard a guess that Munster, who are they playing? They're playing the Rabbitohs. Latrell's been named as well for the Rabbitohs. I actually think someone like a Munster might play. That's just a complete hunch, but again, don't need to speculate when we don't know the result or how Origin 2 plays out. And of course, we've got Bulldogs, Manly, and the Dragons on the bye this week. So a lot of good options from those teams because they also play round 18, which is the next major bye that we need to look at. Karaz, Kikau, Hopewadi, Garrick Turbo, Toby Couchman from the Dragons, a few others, all very relevant in terms of Supercoach, Val Holmes, but not considerations in terms of trade-ins for this week, given that they're all on the bye. So I've got this graphic up of the rest periods, but I don't really think it matters a whole amount. I think it's more that just need to see how players pull through. We can revisit this potentially later in the week as well, once we know what the minutes look like for all players for round 16. Alright, let's start off with the hot topic. So the first one I want to tackle is second rowers. So I'm going to end the poll very quickly. It's already gotten about 80 votes, so I think that's a pretty good sample size. But yeah, it makes sense that second row forward is where most trades are happening this round. We have long-term injuries for Olukwatu. He looks to be out for, 6 weeks with that shoulder. Kolomatangi was, I think, second most traded out player. Just Olukwatu's had 15,000 trade outs. Kolomatangi 5,000. Now, sorry, I just realized that my screen is all stuffed up. Give me a second, guys. Sorry about that. There you go. I think that should have solved the matter. So, yeah, looking at your second rows, there's a lot of players on the screen here, and this is probably the most numbers I've probably put on a table all season long, so do bear with me. What I've just got is obviously the normal stuff like price, average, 3-round average, 5-round average. Then I've got break even, their base power for the season, what remaining buys do they have. Ownership is about the top 5%. And then just because sometimes season-long, stats and things aren't always the most useful because players' roles have changed, just taking a quick look at the last 3 weeks or the last 3 games that these guys have played, what their base power was. So there's a few guys I haven't got on the table here. I know people maybe are looking at a Jeremiah Nanai. Literally, I just saw a comment from Radio Buckley here which says Nanai as a point of difference. We'll speak about Nanai as well. I haven't actually really considered Nanai. To be fair though, he's got some good numbers in the last few rounds as well. So we'll talk about him. So firstly, I think it's on, Fafita. Two pros asking about this Dave Fafita or a buy. Firstly, is Kolomatangi a sell? I was always in the camp of Kolomatangi hold, just because if you listen to NRL Physio's Magic Sponge podcast, they mentioned that best case 3 weeks. Worst case would be longer than that, maybe 5 to 6 weeks. But there was a chance that he'd be back by round 18. And round 18 is obviously a very important major buy round. And I think what Kolomatangi has shown is that playing in the middle, he's an absolute gun, absolute season keeper, the numbers that he was putting out. So for me, I was always in the camp of if you had the depth in your second row, I think you hold Keon. And I'm still firmly in that camp as well. Yes, some whispers going around that he might actually be more of a chance of coming back earlier than that particular time frame. And I think it's one of the situations as well where the Rabbitohs are incentivized to bring him back as soon as they can because he's so important to that team. And they need all hands on deck. They've got a few other players injured as well. So I'm actually sitting on Kolomatangi, and I'll be keeping him just in my reserves. Even if we get through to round 18, then you're getting to a point where he's closer to being back than not. And so I'll probably just stick it out. And it's a situation as well where, just using so many trades, I've got, after making one trade of Turbo to Teddy this week, I've got 14 trades as it currently stands. I think I saw someone in the chat saying that they've got 16 trades left. Is that good? I think 16 is fine. I don't have the slide with me on this particular set of slides, but I put out one, I think either 1 week or maybe it was last week, just looking at my predicted trade usage through future rounds. And I was on, I think it was 2 weeks ago, I was on about 19 and I had predicted that I should be okay to get to the end of the season, being able to, manage having 19 trades. And I think also our team should be in a pretty good position squad depth wise. Hopefully, we generated a lot of cash this season. So I think 14 trades is okay for this week. But I think trying to get round 18 numbers is probably the key thing here. Now, this is a really I apologize, guys. I've been a little bit busy today, but I should have also probably recognized this. I should have checked this in team lists. Yeah, Nanai's been named. Yeah, so this is a really dumb question. Has Nanai been picked for Origin? Yes, he has. He was one of their best in game 1, of course. So yeah, he is someone who won't cover round 18. That's probably the annoying thing. But, he'll be a bit of a point of difference. I don't think he's very highly owned. Look, I feel like I say it every season, but Nanai is never someone who I tend to gravitate to. I feel like he gets on these hot streaks, but then, the Cowboys do have, not the great. They got round 17 as a good game against the Titans, but then missing 18, comes back to 19 against the Dogs, Roosters. Not that it matters so much. Sorry, not Roosters. Comes back to the Dogs in 19. Draw doesn't matter so much for your back rowers, but just the Cowboys, I'm just not sure if I want to overly invest in one of their players. So someone here has mentioned it, Jason Yang, Eli Katoa. That's the most popular trade of the round, and he was my number 1 second row forward. If you're looking at buying one this week and you don't have Eli Katoa, I think he's the most obvious pick. He has no more buys for the rest of the year. I'm sure he'll miss a game at some point before the run home, just because Melbourne generally, if they're sitting in a pretty good spot, will be able to rest one of their Origin players. Or not Origin players, sorry, will rest some of their gun players. And someone like a Jerome Hughes, Katoa, I think are in the same boat there. But the fact that he's, very consistent, you look at that average of, he's got the same 3-round, 5-round, and season-long average of 74, solid base power of 59, but we know he's got that attacking upside. And especially during the bye period where if there's any given week where there's no Munster, no Harry Grant, all the ball is going to go through Jerome Hughes and Pappy. That means good things for Eli Katoa. I think for me, he is in my top 3 second row forward for the run home. So I think Olaquatu to him makes complete sense. Pretty similar prices as well. He 100% would be the one I'd be going for. After him, it's a bit tough because you've got a lot of good options, but not a lot of them who you maybe want to ideally pick up this week or in coming weeks, just because of the whole Origin. Like if I had to think of my best 4 second row forwards that you could have for the rest of the year, I think Eli Katoa would be one. I'm going to include Dylan Lucas in there just because I think we've got such a good crop of centres. Having Lucas in second row forward is actually very useful. So I'll put Lucas in my top 4. I'll put in Hudson Young. I think Hudson Young has proven enough that he can be a top 4 second row forward. I'm going to exclude Tino. Let's put Tino maybe in the front row. I think my 4th would probably be someone like an Angus Crichton, maybe someone like an Aaron Clark. I think one of Angus or Aaron Clark might be my 4th second row forward because Clark's minutes have been a little bit down, but he's still been pumping out, pretty much 70. If you look at his last 3 in base power, 66, 72, and 65. I think Angus, after Origin is over, will also be someone who's very cheap as well. He's 574k currently. Decent break even of 63. You just can't really probably buy Angus. I mean, he might back up, but then he might not play the full 80. Then he misses round 17, misses round 18. I think he's just someone I'd put in the not yet category. Maybe in round 19 or round 20 is when you can invest in Angus. Katoa is your obvious one. If you need someone who plays this week that you're absolutely certain about, I think Aaron Clark's probably the next up guy for me. 672k. We've seen really solid numbers from him in the last few weeks, even with those minutes going down. Doesn't cover 18, but he plays all of the covers all of the mini bye weeks. And after round 18, doesn't have any more buys for the rest of the year. Warriors have got a very, very good run home as well. Not too many difficult opponents. So someone like an Aaron Clark, he has picked up some attacking stats, early in the season. I just really like his floor. I feel like you can just kind of pencil him in for 70 points pretty much every week. If people are looking at like a Nanai, Nanai will also be the same in missing round 18 with Origin, but he's more likely to give you these kind of big upside scores, but also probably those lower scores. I like someone like an Aaron Clark who's, I don't know if he's the dual now or he will get the dual, but he's a very solid guy. I realized in my top 4 second row forwards, I probably should put Keon in that. Just excluding him for the time being because he's injured. But yeah, Keon actually would probably be top 3. Like Eli Katoa, Keon, and then maybe I think Hudson Young, Aaron Clark, Angus. 3 or 4 of those 5 I think you'd be pretty happy with as your back rowers. Now, this is also one of those positions where you can get point of difference because I haven't spoken at all about your your Bulldogs players. So they don't play this week, but Viliame Kikau, Jacob Preston absolutely could be your 3rd and 4th second row. So this is, I do feel like this is a position where you can really just if you have a certain fancy to a player, your third or fourth, I think you can just take a punt and just go with who you like. Like I've got my preference for the safer guys like your Clarks. Hudson Young's got a really good ceiling. He's expensive, but that might deter people and mean that not many people will go there. But Eli Katoa and Keon, I think if Keon's fit playing in the middle, those two I think absolutely in there. Dylan Lucas I think is just really solid, either as a center or second row. That's why you can probably just really take a shot with anyone you want at your third or fourth. It could be Hudson Young, could be Aaron Clark, could be Angus, could be a Nana if you want to go a bit of a point of difference, could be Kickout, could be Preston. There's a lot of guys there. I think the guys who I'm probably maybe less keen on, Isaiah Yeo, I haven't currently seen enough out of him all season, I think, I wonder if it's maybe just a bit of a slump with Penrith in general is what's also affecting someone like an Isaiah Yeo. But yeah, Isaiah Yeo for me probably isn't going to quite cut it, at least as it currently stands. Same with Toby Couchman. Like Couchman is super solid, but again, I'm just thinking guys who I have a slight preference for. Couchman's probably not in there. I think Preston is someone who will be popular because he killed it earlier in the season. With Preston though, I feel like if he stays on the right-hand side, that's definitely where his scoring is not going to be as good because all of his big scores coincided when Kickout was out. And we've seen that left second row forward spot for the Doggies has been where all the big points are coming from. So for example, Kickout's got a 5-round average of 80. His season-long base power is 54, which is higher than other seasons as well. And Kickout had like 91 in base power last round as well. So someone like a Kickout actually could be a really nice point of difference. So it's very hard to give very specific advice, when it pertains to those kind of players who aren't playing this week, because if you really like Viliami Kickout, you obviously can't get him this week. But if you're in a position where you need to sell Olaquatu and get someone in this week, that's when I narrow my focus to Eli Katoa, Aaron Clark. If Hudson Young backs up, he misses 18 and he misses 19. That's just what makes it a little bit tricky, I think, to miss Hudson Young because of Origin in 18. He misses 19. He also will miss round 24. So he has a couple of extra buys maybe compared to some of these other guys that I've got on the screen here. The difference is that, you can always just play someone else. And, by round 24, you probably should have good squad depth to cope with that. So very, very hard to give very generic advice about the back rowers, aside from Eli Katoa and Aaron Clark, who are probably my number 1 and 2 for trade-ins this week at back row. It's hard to pick someone. Like Carrigan's solid, but, with Origin, he'll miss... may play. He's probably going to play reduced minutes this week. He'll miss 18. May play reduced minutes again in 19. Has a bye in 20. So he feels like, again, someone you can't really consider until round 21. Bo Fermor, I don't mind, actually. So Bo Fermor would actually probably be, for trade-ins for this week, number 3. I'd put in, Katoa, Aaron Clark, then Bo Fermor. Fermor's at a good price at $588K. Season-long average playing on that forward's edge is 72. So his season average of 66 has been impacted by games at center. He's got that handy duel as well if you can flick that between him and Dylan Lucas. If you look at his last 3 games, base power-wise, 69, 64, and 58. So there's actually an uptick as well in base power. And, if he's getting a mid-60s base power every week, very, very solid. And we know he's got that attacking upside. And he'll only miss round 18 moving forward. So he only misses the 1 week. And again, you can see the ownership stats that I've got on the screen there. Aside from an Eli Katoa, most of these guys have got a pretty poddish, like Aaron Clark's 31%, and this is ownership in the top 5%. Nikora is only 16%, Fermor 13%, Hudson Young 7%. What else we got here? Angus Crichton's like 0.5%, which I think is for good reason. Another guy I wanted to give a shout out as well is Jackal Williams. So he's had a bit of a slight change in his role for Parramatta. Now, again, he misses round 18, so if that's really what you're focused on, then he's probably not the guy for you. And there's not many of these guys who actually play 18. If you really need round 18 numbers, it's Eli Katoa, or it's the guys below me in Kickout, Preston, and Couchman. If I had to assume Kickout was playing this week, I think I'd put him third. I'd put in Eli Katoa, Aaron Clark, then Kickout, just because I think Kickout's work rate is up this year. But also just you can see how clearly in attack the Bulldogs are favouring that left back rower. We've seen it with Preston when he was playing there. He was putting up good numbers. So I think Kickout is actually a bit of a different beast this year when it comes to Supercoach. So he would be third for me, but of course he doesn't play this week. So if you needed to buy someone to cover you for this week, it probably would be Bo Fermor for me. After that would probably be Britton Nikora. again, plays 16, plays 19, so he's got that mini bye round coverage. Base power the last couple of weeks has been up with 65 and 55. But again, just a bit hot and cold for me. We know that he can go on these big runs. Just at the moment, the Sharks don't look quite amazing at the moment. So I'm just wondering, I think the good thing with Nikora is that you can play him on matchups. You can trade him in and you don't have to play him every single week. If you got like an Aaron Clark, you'd probably want to play him every week. If you had a kick out, you'd probably play him, I guess, almost every week, aside from a really, really tough matchup. But, the Bulldogs are the tough matchup this year. But yeah, with Jack Williams very quickly. So yeah, season-long average is 58, but 3-round average of 79, 5-round average of 69. If you look at his last 3 games base power-wise, 62, 72, and 71. So he's got really, really good base power. And I guess if you're looking at really trying to go uber pod, single-digit ownership in your higher-ranked players, he would probably feature in that. I think he's also got dual. I'll have to double-check this one. So let me just quickly see. Jack Williams, yeah, he's got second row forward, front row forward. So again, that's just another slight thing that you might, like in his favor. Just, I guess the downside of him is that, compared to so many of the other guys, probably doesn't quite maybe have that upside of it getting a lot of attacking stats. But again, if you're just after kind of your meat and potatoes, if you look at his last 4 weeks of 60, 80, 96, and, 62, some really, really good scores there. It's just a case of, do you think that's going to continue to be the case? I'm not sure. I think there's plenty of other options who are not that more expensive than him that I'd just be more confident in, I think. Like I'd rank Katoa, Clark, Beau Fermor, Kikau, all above Jack Williams if you wanted someone who's playing this week, obviously Kikau and not. And then long-term end of season, I'm looking at guys like a Hudson Young, maybe an Angus Crichton, maybe a Zayo comes back into the fold, but again, not playing this week. So he's not really someone that we'd be considering. So I know I've waffled on, quite a decent amount there and probably not been too, I think I've tried to give some ranking. But yeah, to recap rankings for your trade-ins this week at your second row. For me personally, Eli Katoa number 1, Aaron Clark number 2. If he backs up, Hudson Young is a good shout. You just need to really, really be careful with your round 18, round 19 numbers. For that reason, I probably still wouldn't maybe look at Hudson Young. So I'd go Katoa, Aaron Clark. I think I'd go Beau Fermor. I really like the fact that he's got that dual and his numbers at second row this year have been very, very good. Average of 72. So I think he'd be third for me. Fourth would probably be then again like a Jack Williams. And then maybe fifth. Actually, would I go Nikora or Jack Williams? I think I'd go Nikora, probably a bit more proven, then probably Jack Williams. Kaipius Paul, the reason I haven't really spoken about him a lot, I think price a bit much at 637k. His numbers have been good this year though, base power average of 58. I just feel like, the Knights have actually got a bit of a tough run all the way up until round 22. They've got this week. I can't remember who the Knights are playing this week. Give me 1 second. I've got here. Yeah, they've got the Dolphins, Raiders by Melbourne, Warriors, Raiders, and then another by then Penrith, who could be better by then. So again, just thinking of your not ceiling guys, but guys who might outperform their price tag. I think Kaipius Paul, big attacking stats might not quite be there, so that's probably why he's dropped in my rankings. Carrigan missing a lot of games, and then Angus the same as well. So look, hopefully that helps. I think it's one of those weeks and positions where. No, I do really think that if Kikau was playing this week, he'd be third for me. And if you really want him, and if you can cover, even if you don't have to sell Olukwatu this week, if you can afford to cover him, and then you can just go Olukwatu to Kikau next week. Good thing with the Bulldogs as well is after this week, they have no more buys for the rest of the year. So again, availability is really good for your Doggies players from next round. So yeah, just need to kind of, see what works best for your own team. As I always say, you need to know what weeks you're going to be better or worse covered. But yeah, that's kind of my thoughts, I guess, on the back rowers there. I'll see if there's any relevant questions I can maybe pull out. So yeah, SC Warriors saying I would have had Dylan Lucas as a top 2 RF. And yeah, look, I probably should say as well, the reason I haven't got Dylan Lucas on this screen is that he's so highly owned already. I assume that most people already have him. If you didn't have Dylan Lucas, he'd probably be number 2 behind Katoa for me. Just the dual. Lucas got like 70 points last week, really without doing much apart from that. I think he got that try contribution and line break, but Lucas has shown all season long that he's a season keeper as well. Just assume that most people already have him. But yeah, really like Eli Katoa, really like Aaron Clark. So yeah, so Cos is saying, what about Isaiah Yeo? Panthers have a good run post-Origin. I think the thing, you've kind of said it there though, post-Origin, I think that's only really when I'd consider him. They do have a good set of games coming up from round 19. And so, yeah, he could be an option. It's just right now when we're looking at who we're looking at getting, he just doesn't quite feature, in that category. And yeah, with Dylan Lucas, I actually do think I prefer having him at second row, just because center, like this week, I'm missing a couple of my centers in Garrick, but we've got Sharp, we've got Fletcher Sharp, we've got Herbie Farnworth, we've got Carraz, we've got Lomax, we've got Val Holmes. People bought Osako last week. There's so many good centers that you can. I'm sure there's plenty that I've forgotten there as well, Marzu, etc. There's plenty of good centers that you can get. The second rows, there's also lots of good ones. It's just probably a little bit less clear cut as to who are the best ones. So yeah, that's some of my thoughts on the second row, and hopefully that did help out things. With Preston, I can see Naki saying Preston with the upside and running off of Galvin. That's true, but we still don't fully know what Galvin's role was going to be, because of course he started last week, but that was with no Matt Burton. And if Galvin's not, we don't know until round 17. But what you do know 100% is that left edge for the Bulldogs has been the money position for their forwards. So Kikau's nailed for that, 80 minutes. So I think Kikau will give you some low games of 50, 45, maybe 55, but he's shown that he's got the ability to go 90, 100 plus. And he's probably similar to a Nicola where you could just play him on matchups. But I feel a bit more confident about the team overall in the Doggies. And I think they also have a pretty decent run home. Apart from the very last month, I don't really think they've got too many difficult matchups there. Matrix reckons that Randall's a season keeper. Yeah, I'll let him have his Randall glory, because they were pumping him up and he scored very well last week for sure. Dave Fafita, look, I don't know if I have to see it. I think I've said it at the beginning of the year the whole time. I just need to see it from Fafita. He had that one game of 128. Apart from that, he hasn't done anything. So, yeah, for me, Fafita, not an option as it currently stands. Jack Williams is like an Aaron Clark with no attack. Yeah, I'd probably say, yeah, if you can just get Aaron Clark instead, I'd get Aaron Clark for sure. Warriors have got the good run home, as Tool Pros also pointed out there as well. On Lucas, are we worried about Lucas with a tough run coming up? If so, would he be a hold for after the bad run? Yeah, I think Lucas for me still is someone that you can absolutely keep despite the tough run. Fletcher Sharp is maybe a different category where he's more reliant on attacking stats. The fact that Lucas plays that edge role, he's got good underlying work rate, just means that even in tough matchups, he'll still bang out like a 65 something plus. Like if you look at Dylan Lucas's base power for the season, he averages 62. So if you think that that's his floor every week, and he's shown this season he's got that ability to break the line. He did it last week. For me, he's someone who most weeks pretty comfortably should get us 65 to 70 points. Granted he stays on the left edge, because apart from that one game where he, I think a couple of games he played in the centers where he had base power of 43 and maybe 54. But apart from that, base power 63, 70, 69, 63, 67, 70, 68. Like the guy's pretty much a safe bet for 65 to 70. I'm not really too concerned about draw when it comes to someone like a Dylan Lucas. All right, let's get into some center chat as well, because that was the next highest. But yeah, hopefully that helped as well on the second row forward chat. So on the centers, the most traded in play this week is a Jack Bostock. Fair enough. He's just come off scoring 107. Actually, he's the second most traded in player at the moment. That's Eli Couture is actually number one. But yeah, negative 72 break even, 534k, and obviously just absolutely monstered it last week. Do I think he's a buy? I think he's a buy if you want to make money. But we're at a point of the season where you do need to be conscious of your trades. He is someone who I do feel like is a trade in and a trade out, because yes, the last 3 weeks were good with 176, 79, 52. Before that, 31, 62, 13, 24, 52, 31, 19, 42. He is a rocks and diamonds player and he needs attacking stats. The Dolphins are absolutely on fire at the moment. Nothing to say that the tries won't stop in the next 2 weeks against the Knights in Perth and then the Rabbitohs at a core stadium. He absolutely could go bonkers in those 2 weeks. He could be 700k in a couple of rounds, and then you cash into anyone of your fancy. He could be your stepping stone to Carraz. Like if you feel like you've got the trades to be able to navigate and maybe cash in on him, or he just turns out to be a plug and play in certain matchups, then sure. For me personally though, I don't think Bostock for me is someone who I'd be overly recommending as like someone just for your kind of your top 17, top 18. I don't think he's a top center option. Fletcher Sharp to Herbie Farnworth. Now, on Fletcher Sharp, there was a bit of doubt whether he was going to play this week. He's been named, and I can see someone in the chat, I think, let me see, it was Richard Keys is saying that. Barry Tui said that barring any further issues, he'll play. I'm assuming that's in reference to Fletcher Sharp. I would assume that Fletcher Sharp plays this week. Apparently, it was very minor, and so he was a shot at playing last week. Fletcher Sharp to Herbie, I think the fact that he's playing this round, it's tough because Sharp's got a decent break even of 94 and Herbie's got the low one of 24. I don't think I'd do that trade. I just think Herbie is awesome. Really, really good base power of 61, but Fletcher Sharp himself has also been very good. Like his 5-round average is 84, 3-round average of 98. And yes, the games are tough in the next couple of weeks before the bye in round 18. But I just think if he's playing, it feels like a luxury move, especially in a round like this where, we're going to be potentially short on numbers, post what happens in State of Origin. So, it's very, very tough to not have to say don't buy Herbie, especially as a recent Herbie Farnworth owner. It does feel good, I can tell you that much. But I don't think I'd be doing Sharp to Herbie. Herbie's he's the same price as Tedesco right now, which is mad when you think about it. Let's see if there's any other questions on the centers. So there actually isn't a lot of trade movement happening at center this week. Apart from Bostock and apart from Herbie Farnworth, like in his own right, Herbie Farnworth is a good trade in this week. It's just the fact that if you had to go Sharp to him, I'm not sure. Like long term, I think I'd rather have Herbie Farnworth over Fletcher Sharp. Like if you're thinking of like rankings of top centers, because if you look at the Knights' run, it isn't easy. Dolphins, Raiders bye, Melbourne Warriors, Raiders bye again, then Penrith. It is a tough long-term run, but the thing with Fletcher Sharp, I guess, is that he was still putting up scores, when the Knights weren't really attacking very well, and in pretty tough matchups as well. Like his lowest score this season is having a look at it here. It was 35. Was it 30? Yeah, it was 35 against Parramatta. Otherwise, it was a 43 against the Dogs, 85 against the Sharks. That's a pretty good, not an easy matchup. He is someone who I think by round 18, he could be someone you decide to antipod. This particular week, though, would I make that move? Maybe not. But I can see the merits because if you do look at his earlier season scores, when he had tough games, more often than not, he was not scoring huge. Like, there was the, let me have a look at it here, 48 against the Warriors, a 43 against the Dogs, 52 against the Tigers, and that was back when the Tigers were kind of defending not that badly. He has got these games where he scores between 40 to 50. And if you think more of those are coming up in that, I'd say it's a pretty tough run home. Maybe round 18 is a time to pivot off, and maybe that's when you go him to like a Carraz. I know a few people were thinking of going Sharp to Carraz if in round 17. You could give it a week, see how it looks. Look, if you're desperate for Herbie, I think he's a long-term better pick than Sharp. So, for 50k, I can understand it, but if Sharp's healthy, the Dolphins can still league points, on their day as well. Is Lomax still a trade in this week, even though Moses and Brown are out? Yeah, this is a very, very good question. So I bought Lomax back in round 13. The fact that he's going against a Broncos team that, is probably slightly on the improve with Reece Walsh back. Melbourne in round 7. Sorry, I've got that draw all wrong. Apologies for that. That's not right. Sorry. Let me fix that up. This is what happens when you try to put all these slides together very, very quickly, but that's not the draw for the Parramatta Eels. 1 second. You guys can see what happens behind the scenes now because of this. Where is it? Here we go. So Lomax, your draw. Titans and Dragons is actually the next 2 weeks, so that changes things. Is he still a buy without those two? Look, we saw the Titans actually be pretty good defensively last round. Then it's a grudge match against his old club in round 17. Look, I think if you want to move on to a center this week, and if you want Lomax long term, I think he's completely fine to get because, look, the Titans were good 1 week. They can be terrible the next week. So it could be a really good matchup for him still. And not that many weeks ago, Carraz got a hat-trick against them. That right wing spot has actually been a very, very good spot against the Titans. So even though there's no Moses and no Dill Brown, maybe the Eels have actually been better as well the last few weeks. I wouldn't call him a must-buy by any means, 129 break-even, but if you're looking for a point of difference this week, he feels like a nice one where he's 20% owned in higher ranks. He's expensive, so not a lot of people will move to him. It's a good matchup this week, even despite those losses for the Eels. Good matchup next week as well against his old club. And if you're okay for round 18, then you can maybe afford to leave him out then, and then you've locked in a season keeper for the rest of the year. So again, it kind of becomes team dependent. I don't hate the trade in this round, given that the next 2 weeks are looking pretty good. No Moses and Brown will hurt though. So I also feel like if you're 50-50 or you're not 100%, it's okay to wait, because I don't think he's going to go out and hurt you. And his base power has been a little bit down in the last few weeks as well. I think his tackle busting has gone down a bit. And that's a lot of it is a function of, coming off of Origin. So again, he doesn't feel like a scary fade, I guess, for this week and the next. So yeah, for me, Lomax is fine, but I wouldn't call him a must-buy by any means. But if you are looking at bringing in a run-home season keeper centre this week, who's not named Herbie Farnworth, Lomax is probably your guy. Turbo is a centre. Yeah, we'll talk about Turbo when we get to the fullback spot. Just while we're on the topic of centres, if anyone is still holding onto Lehigh Hopewadi, with this news that Turbo is going to move to centre, Hopewadi probably goes to fullback. If you haven't sold Hopewadi already, I would be doing what I can to keep him, because the next 2 weeks after I think they're the Tigers and the Rabbitohs at home. Hopewadi at fullback would be a very, very nice player to have, and he'll be a pod again because so many people have sold after he got injured in round 14. Couple of point of difference players who I don't have on the screen here. So I know some people are looking at a Tuivasa-Sheck, and some people are also looking at like a Jarrell Skelton. I can see Ewan saying here that Skelton isn't... someone is saying that Skelton flying under the radar. The thing with Skelton and also Tuivasa-Sheck, so I started with both of those guys. They were both kind of low 500s. And to me, they feel like the same kind of players. Like the Warriors do have a very good run home. I'll quickly just show you the draw on the slide with the fullbacks. So if we read out the Warriors draw just for the rest of pretty much the rest of the year. Penrith and Broncos, but a Penrith team without all their Origin players. Broncos is fine. Then they have the bye in round 18. Tigers, Knights, Titans, Dolphins, Dogs, Dragons, Titans, Parramatta, Manly. That is a very, very good run home for the Warriors. Like apart from that Bulldogs matchup in round 23, nothing really scares me there, to be honest. So someone like a Tuivasa-Sheck, he'd be one of those guys who you'd get into your team and you'd probably want to play him more weeks than not. The thing for me is that I just don't know if I would still put him in the same category in comparison to your Lomax, Carraz, maybe a Garrick on his day, a Herbie. Because if you look at his scores over the season, 73, 64, he scored tries in both of those games. 76 and 89, that 89 came with a double. 62 last week, granted the 62 was without a try. He just feels like someone who, if he scores a try, he's good for like 65 to 70. If he gets you a double, he might push 90. But, the Warriors are a team as well who I just don't feel like they are necessarily targeting a specific side of the field. They're pretty much well balanced across the field. They don't necessarily always just need to hit Tuivasa-Sheck. They can go anywhere amongst their backline. They've got really good forwards as well, like a Halasima, etc., who can score tries as well. So Tuivasa-Sheck just feel like he'll be a good 60 to 65 player. Like if you give him a try, once every 2 weeks for the run home, he could easily average 65 to 70. Base is good at 32. Skelton, I don't know what his base is off the top of my head. I'd be a little bit scared with Skelton just because of that hamstring. He's only played the one game back from that hamstring, and he had a pretty severe reoccurrence of that, which is why he was out for a pretty considerable amount of time. He's 450k, so it's an okay price. But I'm just thinking at this point of the season, for center, I'd be ideally locking in as much as I can those big run home guys like a Lomax, of Herbie, etc. I just don't know if Tuivasa-Sheck or Skelton for me feel like they're in that mold. If you're happy with them as your 5th, 6th that you play in matchups, I think that's fine. I think they're actually fairly decent trade-ins this week, given that they've got those really good, especially I'd definitely take Tuivasa-Sheck over Skelton, as a bit of a point of difference, just to really take advantage of that good run home. But, I'm taking this question here from, from Jason. from James, James Darcy. So who would be my top centers for the run home? Thinking about it a bit more, especially after talking about the second rowers, I think I'd actually probably maybe rather have Lucas at center. So I think if I had to think of my second rowers, it could be Hudson, Keon, Aaron Clark, Eli Katoa. Sweet. So therefore Lucas, I'd probably have Lucas in my top 4 centers. I think Lomax, I think Karaz, I think Herbie, Lucas, probably top 4. And then if you wanted to reserve one every week as well, it could be Garrick, it could be Val, it could still be maybe a Fletcher Sharp. Just trying to think. If I had to pick between Val or Garrick, I think it'd still take Garrick, just because I think Manly are more likely to score those big points rather than maybe the Dragons. But yeah, those would probably be those top 4 I feel pretty confident in. The 5th one is kind of, up to you, what you feel like. Karaz, yeah, he did look injured last week as well. That's one thing we definitely need to just get some more news on and just see what's up, basically. Because Karaz has obviously, had a few injuries as well. But yeah, so I think with someone like, people might also be thinking of a Dallin Watene-Zelezniak. I can see thoughts on DWZ question here from Tour Pro. Again, if you're looking at a Warriors player, I'd rather take Tuivasa-Sheck. I don't think Dallin is the same player that he was back in 2023. 2023 was that season where it was the Sean Johnson show. Everything was going down the right-hand side. They just had that shape that no one could stop of Sean Johnson to CNK to DWZ. That's not quite, even last year, he averaged 55. Last 2 games he's played, he scored tries in both matches and he scored 38 and 33. For me, yes, he's cheap at 372. I just take Tuivasa-Sheck. At least Tuivasa-Sheck, he's more likely to get you 55 to 65 more weeks than not. So not overly keen with DWZ. And yeah, good point with Garrick. If he moves to the wing, I think that increases his appeal. More runs out of his own end, more likely to finish tries off as well. So yeah, if I had to guess my top 5 centers, it would be Lomax, Karaz, Lucas, Herbie, and then probably a Garrick / Val Holmes. Just seeing some other so on the downgrade options here, Jesse Ramian, Karapani, Jed Stewart, and Talakai. So it's similar with Bostock. If you're happy to trade in and trade out, then Talakai is a fine downgrade at 303k because he's dual. That Hirotti's out for 4 to 6 weeks, but you're going to miss round 18, and you just need to be wary that he's one of those guys who, when Hirotti comes back, Talakai will go back to the bench as a middle forward role, and he might be just a bit of an awkward auto emergency player because if you look at his scores throughout the season when he's been having that bench role, 31, 22, 31, 27, 24, 32, 32, 47. There's just lots of those scores within the 30s and 20s. And I think he'll just be a really awkward kind of... No, he wouldn't be a terrible auto emergency, but he's not going to be someone that you really want to play. Break even of 14. Broncos, Melbourne don't scream as amazing matchups. Then he's got the bye. He could be out as soon as round 19. And that's the thing as well. Round 19 is going to be a tricky week, which you want to be able to cover. So I'm personally not that keen on Talakai myself. On Marzu, I know a few people were saying, where's Marzu, or any thoughts on Marzu? I don't think he'd be in my top 5 centers, purely just because while he's got that really good base power, the run home for the Knights, as we spoke about before, is pretty tough. So there's going to be some tough matchups in there. I mean, Greg is pretty matchup proof, but like all those other guys, I think I'd trust their teams to score more points, or their goal kickers, which I just generally prefer as well. So, I mean, he's got big scores against tough opposition this season. Like Sharks, he scored 138 points. But for me, Greg, I think 5th or 6th, but probably not in my top 4, I think. Alrighty, just seeing if there's any other questions on the centers before we move on. Mulatalo, I'm just not sure because of the Sharks in general. I think I'd actually take Tuivasa-Sheck over Mulatalo. I think they're similar price. At least with Tuivasa-Sheck, he's got that better work rate. And I just trust the Warriors more this season. And also, their run home is really, really good. Is Dom Young Knights return a watch? It's a watch. Not sure if I'd just take a leap of faith, though. As we said, the Knights don't really have an amazing run in particular. In terms of your pure downgrades, Jed Stewart's probably the one, 198k. Don't need to jump on him early, but he does cover round 18. So, look, the good thing with him is that he's Ricky Stewart's son. So, probably a good chance of, staying in that team provided he performs well. Karapani, again, I'm also not overly keen just because I think you've got Dean Mariner and Cobbo. Surely one of those two guys will get their spot back over Karapani at some point. So I'm just a little bit concerned with job security. Marky Mark is a bit of a cheeky point of difference. Yeah, you could. I think the thing with him, though, again, is it one that you want to invest in? This, I mean, back on the wing is good. I mean, his scores on the wing were 91 and 97. Then there was a 43. Now, he scored 43 with a try against the Raiders. His base last week was good at centre, was 38. Again, it's similar to second row. If you want to take a pod with your fifth centre wing, it's completely fine. The Roosters don't have a bye after round 17, so he covers 18. So that's definitely one thing in his plus. And he covers round 19. And he's got good matchups in those weeks as well against the Tigers and the Dragons. So from that perspective, I actually don't hate it. And then you can maybe just play him on matchup. So I actually don't mind him as a bit of a cheeky point of difference, especially if you're looking for your round 18 cover. Dan Tupou, I think I'd take Nwangani Tuasi over Tupou, in my opinion. All right, seeing some questions about Drinkwater. So let's quickly chat on fullbacks. So Finn Mayo is asking here, Drinkwater to Lehigh. I mean, that's not a trade you'd be doing this week, just given that Lehigh's not playing. For me, Drinkwater's, I think, in the don't buy, don't sell camp, where if you already hold him, if you already own him, you just keep him. Because, look, if those Cowboys Origin players back up, I think that's that's a good, it's much better for the Cowboys team. And the Roosters aren't like amazing defensively; they can league points on their day. And then round 17 is a very good matchup against the Titans with a full strength Origin squad. With Origin players. I just think that Drinkwater he's a hot and cold player. Like, not so much this season, but the last few weeks we've seen obviously the 21s, the 14s. But he just scored 100 against Melbourne 2 weeks ago as well. Me personally, yes, he's got a big break even, so that means I probably wouldn't be buying him. But again, it feels like a week where I think do you really have the luxury to be selling active players? If you do, maybe a Drinkwater to Jaden Campbell, if you want to jump on Jaden Campbell. But again, I just think it's a negative in the sense that you're missing out on round 18 cover then. Because Drinkwater plays round 18. And so for me, Drinkwater, I think, is just a hold. I don't think I'd be selling to Hopewadi. Unless, it depends if you're like a head-to-head player, then maybe it's a little bit different. Because, there are still some good matchups for Drinkwater in the run home. Titans in 17, 2021 don't look too bad. And then 23 to 26 also looks okay. He's going to have these big scores in him. He's going to have these low ones. I think you just need to kind of ride the highs and lows. He's probably not maybe a captain option for these reasons, but the way that fullback is currently, Teddy and Pappy, I think, number 1 and 2. And then third one, I still think is Drinkwater. After Origin, we can reassess, because after Origin's finished, then you can look at guys like Dylan Edwards. You can look at guys like Latrell. Then maybe there's a conversation, I think, to maybe sell Drinkwater. But for me right now, I just think he's in the don't buy, don't sell camp. CNK, I know some people are looking at Nickel Klukstad as a bit of a point of difference. Again, for me, he's very solid, very good base work rate, very good run home as well. And he's had some good scores in the last couple of rounds as well. Just thinking, if you want to go safe with him for a few weeks, then sure, but he doesn't cover 18. He's had a couple of tons this early in the year as well, but there are some lower games in him. He's similar to DWZ. He's probably not that player from 2023-24 where he was kind of averaging in the high 60s. I feel like he's maybe a low 60s averaging player this year. So he just wouldn't be in my top 3. Again, if you want to play some roulette, you could maybe go, CNK. But again, it doesn't overly appeal to me. On Trbojevic, just sell him, is my opinion. You can tell I'm a very bitter, turbo owner. But I think you just need to move off. The experiment didn't work. I went him against Teddy in round 12. It hasn't paid off. Misses this week. Yes, it's Tigers and Rabbitohs, but he's apparently playing at centre. Then it's another buy in round 19. And then he comes back to Melbourne Doggies, Roosters, Raiders. No, thank you. I I would just do what you can to upgrade him. If you don't own Teddy or Pappy, just get the one that you don't have. If you already own them and you don't want to buy Drinkwater, I would probably just use your flex and just get someone you like. You can get Turbo out for Aaron Clark. You can get one of these centers we spoke about. Like, you can just use your flex to your advantage. You don't have to get another fullback. And then you can always pivot to another fullback post-origin. But yeah, for me, just sell Turbo. Reece Walsh is an option, but look, he might come in for Queensland round 18. Let's just see what happens with game 2 tomorrow. So I'm not going to really comment too much more on him in particular. I've realized I've been going for an hour, which is crazy. I wasn't expecting to be going for so long, almost going for an hour. Any questions about the halves and 5/8? Let's Turbo will be dual. Turbo could be hooker, center, fullback, front row, second row, 5/8 halfback. If he looks like how he is, I will not pick him. Sorry, Tool Pro. I don't want to crap on your comment about him being dual. I don't care if he's dual. I don't want him. Like, honestly, even if he's available at center, there's so many other centers I'd pick over him anyway. So yeah, for me, no go. Apologies to rain on your parade. But on your halves. So I think Cleary, the fact that he's missing this week as well, he can be sold. I think he's currently in the top 10 trade outs. He's number 4 on the trade outs. I think that makes sense. Jerome Hughes, I think, is number 3 in the trade-ins. If you don't own Jerome Hughes and you own Cleary, I think I'd be making that switch. The Storm don't have any more bias for the rest of the year. Very good matchups against the Rabbitohs and then the Cowboys in 18. Sharks at home as well in 17 is not terrible. And it's just a good run home for them as well from round 19 onwards. So Jerome Hughes could feasibly be halfback number 2. I think the form of Hines that we're seeing, it's a good move as well to just go a little bit against Hines. Hines is 83% owned in higher ranks. Hughes is currently only 34%. Obviously expect that number to go up quite considerably this week. But Cleary to Hughes I think is a very, very obvious move. On Hines, I know some people on Sunday were thinking of selling. Again, tough one where he's a warm body who's playing this round. I bought him last week expecting more. It's not really worked out. I think if you already own Hines, my opinion, go Cleary to Hughes and then just have a plan in round 19 to go back to Cleary, because as you can see, from round 19 onwards, Cleary has a very, very good run. Parramatta, Rabbitohs, Tigers, Titans, Knights before Melbourne in 24. You want Cleary back, especially if he backs up in round 19. Then you can decide, do you sell one of Hughes or Hines? Based on the draws, based on form, I think I'd probably sell Hines at this point in time. Would I go Hines to Hughes? Because I know some people are thinking about doing that as well. I probably would if you felt like you needed that extra cover for round 18. You could make the move in round 18 itself. Doesn't have to be this week if you need to make sure you prioritize just fielding players. But in terms of matchups, I prefer Hughes, and he covers around 18, which Hines doesn't. On your 5/8s, people are selling Munster potentially. I'm just going to have a quick look if Munster's in the top sells. Munster isn't in the top sells as it currently stands. He's been named, which helps. I think for me, my second planned trade this week was going to be Munster to Campbell if Munster doesn't play. Thankfully, the Titans play the very last game of the round, so I can kind of wait for that. If Munster plays, I won't be selling him. But if Munster misses out, I will probably go Munster to... I'll probably go to Campbell. Metcalf looks tempting because he's actually on a really good run, 5-round average of 72. But to me, I still think Jaden Campbell now being cheaper than Metcalf. I didn't even realize that until just now. The fact that Campbell is cheaper than Metcalf, for me, I think I would definitely be going Campbell. And the next 2 weeks of Parramatta and Cowboys look very good. And the Titans don't have any buys after round 18, similar to Metcalf and the Warriors. Warriors' run home is really good, as we spoke about. But I just don't know. I still feel like Jaden Campbell to me is the guy I'd prefer. I've got a whole table of other point of difference players below me, like Reynolds, Fogarty, Isaiah Katoa, Lockie Galvin doesn't play this week. Ethan Strange got a negative break even. Cody Nikorima's got a 5-round average of 81 if you really just want to go all in on the Dolphins. I still feel like, though, Campbell and Metcalf would be my guys at 5'8". I'd be looking at if you're making a trade there. Galvin could be interesting. We just don't know with his role, so that's why you don't really need to... There's no need to jump early on him. He misses this week anyway. And then for the halfback, Hughes for me looks like a go. Sorry, guys, I had to kind of rush through that a little bit just because I'm a little bit conscious of time. I've been going on quite a bit. Mam as a point of difference from Zachary. I've never been big on Mam. He's always been a kind of mid-50s averaging player. I really like, honestly, Metcalf is a good point of difference player because he's only 28% owned by top 5% of coaches. Campbell's at 50%. We looked at that Warriors run home. It looks really good. He's also looking just more and more comfortable in his role. He had 3-round average of 84. Season average is now 65. Campbell versus Metcalf, I'm still probably on the side of go get Jaden Campbell because I've seen it over more years in Supercoach. But I think Metcalf, for me, look, honestly, he's still completely fine to get as an option. It could be a nice little point of difference as well. 28% doesn't sound low, but think of it as, there's 72% of top 5% who don't own him. And a lot won't go there because so many of us owned him. People don't generally like buying back players that they've sold. So that's just the other thing that you need to think about. Yeah, sorry, Tool Pro, you've said harsh. Apologies. I just, it's nothing personal with you, mate. I'm just that off Tom Trbojevic. So yeah, wasn't having a go at you whatsoever. I'm just filthy with Turbo. All right, guys, I will probably skip the matchups section of this just for time. But we'll take a quick look at captaincy for this week. Quick look at my team as well, and then we'll wrap it up. And yeah, but thanks everyone for tuning in as well. I just couldn't believe how long the stream's going. I was hoping to get it done a little bit faster. For this week, for your captaincy, a few things really stand out to me. Dolphins players, Storm players, Roosters players. They're the three teams that I think have got the best matchups this round. Dolphins have got the Knights. It's not really at home, it's at Perth. Just based on their form though, Herbie and Osako as potential early VCs looks a really good option. They play on Saturday, I think earlier in the round, earlier on the day. Just going to have a quick look at that. Give me 1 second. So the Dolphins play at 5:30 on Saturday, but assuming that that's local time, that would mean that in Perth they actually play at like 2 o'clock or 2:30. So it could be a nice sunny day game. Although I'm just going to quickly check what the weather looks like because generally it's good to captain players in nice dry conditions. Saturday says light rain. Actually looks like it could be raining for Origin tomorrow. So either way, they're not my VC. I would be going Pappy. So it's got the Rabbitohs away, but look, it's still the Rabbitohs. They are ranked first for conceding points to opposing fullbacks. Coming fresh off a bye, looks like he had I think if you guys hadn't heard the Sunday stream, I saw Pappy at brunch on Sunday morning. Very, very good bagel, very, very good cafe for bagels in Sydney's northwest. So put it this way, Pappy's refreshed. He's been in Sydney, so he doesn't even need to travel from Melbourne. He's been chilling out in Sydney, eating good bagels, which I can vouch for myself. Coming up against a team that have conceded the most points to opposing fullbacks, he's my VC. Lock it in. That will not be changing. And I promise, guys, my captains will be 100% accurate to what I tell people online this week. I can hand on heart tell you that. For your captaincy, I skipped over Terrell May, but he plays the first game of the round. Look, he's a safe VC, but I feel like with VC, you want to chase that big ceiling. So again, this week doesn't feel like an ideal week, I think, to maybe go Terrell May. Teddy just stands out for me. Cowboys at home. He's also coming off a bye. We saw what the Cowboys dished up last week, and I think if we see the Cowboys don't have their Origin players, slap that captaincy straight on Tedesco. For me, if you can do Pappy, VC, Captain Teddy, with your flex and whatnot, for me, that's the combination I think that's best to go with this week. As soon as Monday the game unlocked, that's the first thing I did. Turbo to Teddy. I slapped the captaincy on Teddy. I VC'd Pappy, and I just thought, looks good to me. I don't think I'm going to change that. So let me know what you guys are thinking about your captaincy, but I can't really look past that. Lomax, the matchup looks good for the right wingers, but just no Moses, Dill Bags. I'm not 100% sure. Campbell might be a nice option if you don't own Teddy, but I do encourage, if you don't own Teddy, purchase him this week if you can. I know he misses 17, but look, it's a good matchup this week, and he plays 18 and round 19. Yeah, VC Pappy, Captain Teddy just feels very safe, and we don't have a Kolomatangi to fall back on this week. You don't really want to be captaining Payne Haas post-Origin and whatnot. You could go, if you don't own one of Pappy or Teddy, you could go VC May, and if he goes and scores like 100, lock it in, and then you don't need to worry about it. Otherwise, you can go VC May and then Captain Pappy is how I'd maybe play it, or Teddy, which either one of the two you own. But if you own both of them and you can do it, for me, VC Pappy, Captain Teddy just feels like the combination to go for. That was all I wanted to get through in terms of plan stuff. I'll quickly just show you my team. As I said, I'm traveling from tomorrow, so I'm not 100% sure if I will be able to post a final updated trade / thoughts video on Friday. If I can on Friday afternoon, I'll try to do it. But yeah, I'm not even going to be in Sydney tomorrow or Thursday, so it's going to be tough to put anything out the next couple of days. For my own team, numbers actually look okay with Fletcher Sharp being named, and the whispers on Kolomatangi as well. Tino being benched isn't great, so I've currently got him outside of my starting squad. I've done Turbo to Teddy, as I said, lock that in, Captain Tedesco, VC Pappy. I'm hoping that Connor Watson backs up. If he doesn't back up, then I've got Sanders Smith to fall back on. That will mean, though, I need to pick another reserve out of like a Hubner Billy Smith, which doesn't look great. So I'm not sure what my second trade is going to be as it currently stands. We didn't really speak about Tino actually, but yeah, I think there's a fair argument to sell Tino. 131 break even, he's 700k. Coming off the bench, he could leak a lot of cash, and he's got that sternum issue. For me, I'm still in the camp of if I can hold him, I will. Just because I think if he is able to be, okay post this sternum issue, we saw what he was putting up early in the season. He is a season keeper. For the time being, though, he could be someone that you sell and could be a nice little antipod. You sell him and he maybe, if he keeps battling the sternum issue, he could just be kind of, not looking so great for the remainder of the season. So I think for me, if Munster doesn't play, I'll go Munster to Campbell. If Munster plays, there is a chance that I go Tino out just to try to maybe get ahead of the crowd and maybe do that slight antipod. And then I'll bring in one of those back rolls that we spoke about. So based on that ranking that I had, Aaron Clark would probably be the one that comes in for me. Don't necessarily need to do that move. I can't get to a center wing via duels. But yeah, maybe Tino out for an Aaron Clark. But if the backups don't look too bad, I feel like my squad looks okay for this week. That I might not have to force a second trade. But yeah, I'll update people. Best place to see my team is on Patreon, where I will definitely post it on Friday before the first game at 8 o'clock. But hopefully I can get some video out as well just to go through my updated thoughts. It's just a bit hard now with not knowing what the outcome is of the State of Origin Game 2. Let's take a couple of questions and then we'll wrap it up. What about the Raiders from Regan? Strange, Weeks and Fogarty, as they have easy 6 games coming up and only 1 mini buy. So yeah, I kind of skipped past the likes of a Fogarty. The thing with Fogarty, not goal kicking was the last time we saw him, just because of that groin issue. So that kind of means I think I'd be just getting Hughes instead. Ethan Strange could be a nice little point of difference play. I guess the flip side is that he was goal kicking, but could easily hand that back to Fogarty. I just don't know if he's like long-term going to be... I mean, not that it matters so much at 5'8". It's not a crash hot position. You could take a punt. He's got the negative break even. Tigers, Knights, Dragons, next 3 is good. Covers round 18, but misses 19. I'm really scared about round 19. So, yeah, look, for my own particular team, I haven't really considered it. If you're trading at 5'8", I think if you didn't own Campbell or Metcalf, though, I think I'd take either one of those two above Ethan Strange for me. And KO Weeks just feels a bit too hot and cold. So I'll have a quick look at KO Weeks' scores. I know the last few weeks has actually been pretty good. But we're looking at here, he scored 24 against the Rabbitohs, 45 Roosters, 25 against the Warriors. He did have a couple of scores in rounds 9 and 11, but yeah, those last 3 scores kind of scare me a little bit. So, volatile player. The inconsistency does scare me. Should I have Hines, Hughes, and Cleary, or just take 2 of them? I think I'd just take 2 of them. I think Cleary missing this week, 17 against the Dogs, misses 18, could miss 19. I think Cleary for now is someone that you don't need to necessarily have. So I don't think you need the 3 halfbacks. Thoughts on Khan Pereira? Mid-range cheapie, negative 30, break-even. Last 2 rounds scored 80 plus. Yeah, look, Khan Pereira, again, I put him in the same boat as someone like a KO Weeks. A volatile player. He's not going to be long-term run-home season keeper at centre. Could be someone you play on matchups. This week is good, probably against Parramatta, and then the Cowboys at home. And then maybe in round 18, you can just flip him to, maybe he's a stepping stone to Karaz, makes a bit of money. I I don't hate the shout. You just need to be prepared that, yes, he can get you 90s, but he can also get you these 2 scores the week before of 13-14. So my advice is, if you feel comfortable with that, do it. If you're asking me, would I trade Campero into my own team? I wouldn't. But I'm a bit of a wuss. So yeah, take that what you will. Thank you, Martin, for that very, very kind donation, $20. Thank you for the stream. Only just jumped on, but I'll take a watch after the stream ends. Get yourself a few drinks on me. Thank you very much, Martin. I very much appreciate that. And mate, I appreciate you every week. You're so generous. Lachlan Camilleri says, I've overthought Captain too much recently and haven't got loopable VC since Magic Round. Slap me if I don't stick with VC Pap Captain Teddy. Mate, Lachlan, just reach out to me on any one of my socials if you are having any reservations, and I'll do a virtual slap. Just tell you, mate, get your head straight. VC Pappy, Captain Teddy. Just go to bed saying that. Kiss your kids good night, kiss your wife good night, and then after all of that, VC Pappy, Captain Teddy. VC Pappy, Captain Teddy. That's the mantra. That is the mantra for this week for sure. And I'll be following the same thing. Don't you worry. All right, guys. Probably going to wrap up the stream there. Thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in. Good luck for this week. If I don't speak to you again, go the Blues. Let's just end the series tomorrow night, hopefully. Yeah, up the Blues. All Queensland fans who are watching me, thank you for watching, but I hope you lose tomorrow. Look, as someone who grew up in the era of getting absolutely dominated, don't really have much sympathy when it comes to Queensland losing. I just want to see it. I just want to see New South Wales win their own 8 in a row. So yeah, hopefully wrap up the series tomorrow in game 2. But thank you everyone for tuning in, and see you all in the next one.